John, we need to talk. Hey guys, and welcome to GT Not Live, where today I am going back into John FNAF's entire FNAF timeline. And by the entire timeline, I do mean from like the 70s up to Ultimate Custom Night. But this is our second part of this reaction. So far in the story, we have seen the 70s and what Fall Fest may or may not be, the development of Fazbear's Family Diner, of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, the Bite of 83, and the death of Charlotte Emily. We have covered a lot of the early ground already, but there is still much more to go, and especially with some of John's other theories in the past, Circus Baby has really been a very critical point. And trying to figure out her importance and significance in this story has been something that John has hit on quite a good bit. So I have the sense that we are going to get into a lot of that in today's episode. So I don't see a need to push this out much further, but here's what I'll say. This week on GT Live, things are going to get absolutely bizarre, okay? So I'm going to need y'all to subscribe, or remember to subscribe, so that you can see everything that's going to happen later this week. All right, we've got some experiments. We've got Poppy Playtime coming out, right? So that's going to be a huge game here on the channel. And some other fun and exciting news that I think y'all will really get a kick out of. So don't miss it. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll catch y'all later this week. So without any further ado, let's hop, skip, and jump right into this thing. 17 minutes in, roughly, into an hour timeline, start of part 2. How far will this go? Let's see.
After the death of Charlie, Fazbear Entertainment tried their best at covering it up. Fortunately for them and for William, the crime was committed outside, where no one was around to witness it.
I mean, yes, right? It starts the pattern off of, oh, yes, it happened around this establishment or around the name of Fazbear, but if there's only one person around, then it's like no one else saw it, right? That's a weird thing to call out, because you might be like, well, yeah, duh, like, you don't want to kill someone and have witnesses. Why are you even calling this out right now? Mainly because they make such a big point of it with Sister Location and Circus Baby's line specifically, where, like, she's counting to make sure, like, oh, there were 3 kids, then there was 2, and then there was 1. You're making a point, and you're trading these animatronics to make sure that no one else witnesses their crimes, just like how you had to make sure that no one witnessed your crime by literally doing it outside of the establishment. Okay, William.
William was able to get away with everything, while Fazbear Entertainment never spoke of the incident again. The security puppet was quickly moved to the back room of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, where the retired Fredbear and Spring Bonnie suits resided. But something was different about the security puppet. Dark tears now appeared on the mask of the animatronic. Dark tears that weren't there before.
Yep. Okay. So this is Charlie possessing the puppet, right? It is the soul going in there and then literally changing something about the physical appearance of the animatronic, of the puppet, yeah? Again, this will happen later on when we see Elizabeth get clawed by Circus Baby, and then Baby's eyes go from blue to green to say that Elizabeth is now in there to some degree.
This is something that Afton quickly noticed the next day when he went into work. He'd heard about what happened moments after he sped off. He knew the security puppet was found laying next to Charlie's body. So does that mean—
so many trash cans too. Like, yes, outside of restaurants there's typically large dumpsters and trash bags, but sometimes I sit here and I actually process what's on screen, and I'm like, dang, the food waste situation at Freddy Fazbear's is abysmal.
Charlie's soul now resided in the puppet? William definitely noticed that the puppet looked different, almost like it was haunted, almost like it was thinking. Other employees would eventually notice the same thing.
I'll be honest, I never liked that puppet thing. It's always thinking, and it can go anywhere.
After
Thank you, Scott. Very cool.
Realizing the security puppet may be possessed by the spirit of Charlie, Afton went back and looked at the crying child's Fredbear plushie, only to find that it also seemed to be haunted.
Oh no! And it has little white eyes now.
Crying child feared for his life every single day, and that plushie was something he was able to cry and pour his agony into.
Oh. I like how you put that, John. So, it's explored a bit in the books about like how agony works, right? How just all these negative emotions, like intense negative emotions, can bring objects to life or infiltrate like inanimate objects, yeah? So kind of representing that as the tears of the crying child pouring in to an object, I feel like that's a really good visual on like how to illustrate it, right?
Into. Afton believed that this is what caused the plushie to appear haunted. It wasn't made alive by the spirit of his son, it was made alive by the agony and fear his son poured into it.
My guy was just so sad. But also, that's an important distinction too. The crying child is not living in Fredbear, in the Fredbear plushie. Yeah, it's the negative emotion, it's the pain, the agony, literally the feeling of agony being put into this plushie and giving it some kind of life. The amalgamation of this, I think, of the puppet changing physically, adding the tears into it, the the agony, which is kind of tied to, I'm not saying that agony comes in the form of tears, let me make that clear. I just think that from a symbolism standpoint, that's a really cool way to depict that, of the crying child putting agony into an object, and then that object having some kind of life to it, right? Is that going to be our catalyst into Afton's experimentation in the bunker and his use of hallucinogenic gas? Whew! Me when hallucinogenic gas.
Afton quickly became obsessed with the concept of haunted objects, and more specifically, the power of human emotion. He needed to find out if this is something he could take advantage of. Afton then used all of his money he made from Fredbear's and Freddy Fazbear's Pizza to build a giant underground facility directly under his house.
Oh, sorry. So, okay, a few things here, right? One, to kind of go back to the game theory timeline of things, we're seeing different depictions of Afton between that video and this video. This video seems to have Afton looking at this much more scientifically, I feel. Like the experimentation, the wanting to control or see if he can control emotion to create life, right? Whereas with the game theory timeline, it felt much more motivated as like getting back at Henry and revenge and vengeance for losing his son in 1983. And that's when you get to the keypad where in his little office, there's a keypad you put in 1983. For game theory, this is very much this like, remember what happened, remember what you're working for, angsty Afton. And then here, it feels more like, oh, well, I've noticed these two things. I'm a very broken man, very sad, but this is interesting. I should see if I can leverage this, right? So just cool to see that delineation as well.
It was here that he would try to recreate what happened with his son.
Sorry. Also, this is a fun thing for me to call out too, right? So it was like 2 weeks ago, I went on this really random rabbit hole where I was like, hey, remember when the Aftons were British? Their voice lines were British. I was looking to see, you know, was there more reason to that, right? Because I'd never investigated that before. And I was like, okay, is there a very strong British American population in Utah, around Hurricane, Utah? And the answer, the internet told me yes, that there was, right? And you might be like, hey, why are you bringing this up now? It's because of what Michael is doing here, where to me, it kind of looks like the more offensive hand symbol that one might make if they are in the UK, where it is like a peace sign, but you are seeing the other side of the hand, and the other side of the hand is what's pointing towards the person you're directing it at, right? And to me, that's very funny. If the Aftons are like British or have some kind of like closely related British lineage, because then it's kind of like jump scaring someone, but also flipping them off, which I think is hilarious. Like imagine someone came out at you, and Shannon, I'm gonna trust you to blur this out, but if someone was just like jumping out at you like, bah, da, bah, What? I think of that whenever I see this image, and sometimes it just sits with me.
To recreate the fear and agony he experienced. In order to do this, Afton didn't take any chances. He needed to replicate exactly what his son went through every day. In order to do this, Afton built a replica of his house underground, along with his son's daily walk to Fredbear's family diner.
Right, and I think that from this, if you go back here, yes, so here, the walk that you see should actually mimic the walk that we see in FNAF 4 as the crying child walks around and then heads over to the diner. The shots are actually framed to follow that path, which I think was a point used to confirm that theory.
He also built a makeshift
or prove it, or add evidence to it. What is confirmed, what isn't, who knows?
Bedroom where he could force kids to have the same nightmare every night. Afton would sit in his office watching them on the cameras that could be accessed using the passcode 1983.
Yep, so that's the keypad code that I was referencing before. I'm interested to see what John says. Like, oh, what is there more emotional weight behind this? Is that used to kind of push more narrative detail for Afton, or what, right? Also, probably worth noting here too, another thing I'm interested to see how he explains. Frebby down here with a walkie-talkie, right? Which was a big point, I know, used as evidence for the William Afton using these Fredbear plushies to monitor his son, right? His younger son. So because John went more in the direction of, oh, well, the Fredbear also kind of became an imaginary friend, that was more why we were seeing him everywhere. What is this? How does the walkie-talkie fit? And the fact that we see it right next to Fredbear, how does that fit into the story, right?
1983, the year his son got bit. He also kept the crying child's Fredbear plushie on the desk as a reminder of what he was trying to replicate.
Oh, here we go.
In the makeshift bedroom, there were dummy animatronics that wheeled down the hallway.
Whoa!
The kids wouldn't see them as just blank dummies on wheels. Afton would pump hallucinogenic gas into the room to get the kids to think that what they were seeing was a monster.
Oh, that's so scary. That is really well done. That is really well done. My disdain about hallucinogenic gas aside, right? Because with the gas that causes, you breathe in, you hallucinate, and then you see like nightmare versions of these dummies, right? The gas operates similarly to how the illusion discs eventually will when they are introduced into the timeline. But yes, this is very scary. Also, look at the chompers on this thing. He's got pearly whites, man. Like that everything else is like withered and decrepit, but his teeth are shiny. Chip Skylark would be so proud.
Was a monster. These nightmare gas canisters were being stored all throughout his underground facility, and on the bed of this makeshift bedroom was a Freddy plushie, in the hopes that the kids would pour their fear and agony into the plush, like his son did to his plushie. On the other side of the bunker where Afton recreated the crying child's walk to Fredbear's, he placed a bunch of Fredbear plushies all over the place.
There they
These
are.
Fredbear plushies had walkie-talkies inside of them. This was Afton's way of recreating his son's imaginary friend that would talk to him wherever he went.
Very clever, John FNAF. Yeah, okay. That makes more sense. I guess it is harder to replicate the creation of a specific imaginary friend. So creating a more physical realm buddy would make a lot of sense, therefore. So I'm seeing what you're putting down. I'm seeing what you're putting down. And then this is his way of speaking to the various kids as they're going along. It's a newer system, not, oh, this is just the same thing that I did back then. Because also, when would he have the time for that? When does he have the time for this? I don't know. Afton, brother. Yes, okay, you can say, oh, he made money from the establishments. It's just the money and the time. The time is what gets me. This is not an easy task to do, especially not alone. Like, did you get contractors for this, buddy? How did this happen?
Afton would speak to the kids through his walkie-talkie sitting in his private office. After setting up the bunker, Afton was only missing one more thing: the kids to run these experiments on. He needed a way to kidnap and capture kids without being caught, and he had the perfect way to do it.
It's Desk Man! Hi, Desk Man! Is it Desk Man? He's at a desk, he's a man.
The show will begin momentarily.
It is Desk Man! Ah! Okay, this is a FNAF World reference where you kind of see this guy, he's chilling at a desk, and he tells you that he made Baby, and he regrets it, and then he dies, and then Baby's like, and the show will begin momentarily. It's been theorized that this could be Mr. Scott himself, the Skokaw, perhaps. And if that's the case, it wouldn't be his first time dying in a FNAF game anyway. So, yeah, that's a fun little reference there. I know some people were like, is Desk Man Henry? But the way that the story flows, or the way that most understandings of the story goes, is that Baby is tied to Afton and Afton's creation. Now, of course, there's also the question of like, oh, if we're gonna say that Henry was the creative lead and like the big Mr. Robotics man, I'm gonna do all this stuff real good, beep beep boop boop. I'm like, hey, how did Afton go from like, how do they move on their own? How do Springlock meh to literally creating the fun times with these mechanics that have like these chambers in the stomach that grab and pull, right? Unless, again, he was just like, you know what, Henry? Your Springlock sucked so bad that I am going to absolutely slay the field of robotics and then slay some kids while I'm at it.
The show will begin momentarily. Everyone, please stay in your seats.
I'm seated.
Enters Circus Baby and the Funtime animatronics. These robots were specifically built by Afton to capture kids, featuring Circus Baby, Funtime Freddy, Funtime Foxy, and Ballora.
These renders
They
are
feature
clean.
advanced technologies such as parental tracking, voice mimicking / luring, and storage tanks.
Yeah, okay. So again, let me go back here. 6 feet, 350. Heavyweight champion, Funtime Freddy. All right, let's go back more. Yeah, down here, copyright, Afton Robotics LLC, right? So we have these plans, these blueprints, proximity center, grouping coordination, parental tracking / 360 pivot. That's to make sure there's no parents around. Voice mimic and luring, and the storage tank. Like, if this understanding that Afton was more of like the entrepreneurial businessman, logistics boy, he got good so fast. He couldn't protect Elizabeth from Circus Baby when she got yoinked. But it was just Circus Baby doing what she was designed to do, so I don't even know if I could really call that a robotics failure, right? So, I don't know, I said this in the first part too, but the technological progression of things just stumps me. I consider me thoroughly stumped.
Advanced technologies such as parental tracking, voice mimicking / luring, and storage tanks. Circus Baby, the star of the group, was even able to make ice cream as a way to lure kids to her. Once the kid got too close, a giant claw would reach out, grab them, and lock them in the animatronics storage tank. Some of the board members from Fazbear Entertainment were suspicious of these new animatronics.
She can dance, she can sing. She's equipped with a built-in helium tank for inflating balloons right at her fingertips. She can take song requests. She can even dispense ice cream.
Whoa.
With all due respect, those aren't the design choices we were curious about, Mr. Afton.
What? No, that's not what I want to know. I want to, why is she built like that? Why is she built like that? What's up with the tank? Also, at that point, I would just make fake blueprints to show to the execs. Like, who all is on this board here, right? Like, if that's what John is saying.
Were suspicious of these new animatronics.
She can dance, she can sing. She's equipped with a built-in helium tank for inflating balloons right at her fingertips. She can take song requests. She can even dispense ice cream.
It's like the most weird and sinister, uncomfortable energy board member meeting on the planet. Like, he kind of has this very, like, I don't want to say demure. It's a calculated voice. It's a little sultry. Whoa. But it's like, okay? Like, brother, there's a tank to hold kids in there. Afton's smart, but I also feel like Afton's dumb. I don't know.
With all due respect, those aren't the design choices we were curious about, Mr. Afton.
Afton even created a new restaurant for these animatronics called Circus Baby's Pizza World.
Circus Baby's Pizza World. Okay. Now we're getting back to the point of, like, circus and Fall Fest and this sort of, like, carnival-esque theme and motif that keeps popping up, right? So, you know, to me, it's interesting to see that come back again, and I'm really excited for Secrets of the Mimic to get a sense of, like, hey, are we actually going to see what William Afton and potentially Henry Emily's involvement with this, if any, was? If they pop up in this game, I will cry, and I'll scream, probably. Maybe I'll fall on the floor. It's entirely possible that all of these things might happen, even simultaneously. I don't know. But I'm paying more attention to those themes, and specifically Circus Baby's role, because also, in the later games, we've seen Plush Baby pop up so much. It really feels like Scott and Steel Wool is like, hey, look at Plush Baby. Plush Baby. Do you want the Plush Baby? Yes, you do. Look at Plush Baby. Bah. Like, they're trying to tell us that Plush Baby has some significance, or that Baby as a character is important and is going to play a larger role in the future of the franchise, which might actually be in the past in the timeline. It just feels strange. Like, if she pops up, that has wild implications about a lot of things. Many things change if Circus Baby exists back in the 70s. Anyway, all that to say, I'm paying close attention. Also, what I think is funny about this, now that I'm, like, sitting down and thinking right now, the Week Before book from, like, the recent book, the week before, right? That book tells us that Foxy is the most likely culprit of the bite of 87. Yeah? And then Foxy was just kind of, like, isolated after that point. And I was thinking, after seeing Foxy up here, Foxy, that it's not the first bite that Foxy was involved in some way, shape, or form. Like, the bite of 83, Michael put the crying child into the mouth of Fredbear. Michael had the Foxy Bro mask on, right? Implicated now that Foxy was the culprit in the bite of 87. That's 2 bites that Foxy, as a character, was involved in or associated with. And after the bite of 83, Michael, you know, had a lot of guilt and became, you know, isolated and separated from his siblings, and that he was the only sibling that survived, for one. I like to find patterns, I like to point them out, and leave them for you to decide, hey, how do you feel about this? Like, it's okay if things are wrong, but it's cool to think like, huh, what if? Anyway, I've been staring at this picture for a long time, and so have you, so I'm gonna save you from this weird purgatory that I've created at 22 minutes and 2 seconds and keep on going.
Elizabeth, William Afton's daughter, was fascinated by Circus Baby. All she wanted to do was play with her, but Afton wouldn't let her.
Daddy, why won't you let me play with her?
Oh, yeah, okay, that was the voice line at the beginning. Cool.
We let the other children go see her. Why won't you let me go?
He strictly told her to stay away from the animatronic, but one day she didn't listen. On the opening day of Circus Baby's Pizza World,
The drawing
another
is really
domino
good, too.
would fall in Afton's
It's cute.
life, and Elizabeth would soon be the victim of his terrible misdeeds.
Whoa.
I can do something special. Did you know that? I can make ice cream, although I only did it once. What a wonderful day, though.
Okay.
I was in a small room with balloons and a few tables. I would always count the children. I'm not sure why. They usually played together in groups of 2 or 3. There were 4, then 3, then 2, then 1.
Ugh.
Time to play.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. No. These smash cuts are so good. Like, going from the 3D animation to the pixel. Oh, dude. That's great. Also, most heartbreaking thing in the world when your ice cream cone falls on the floor. Bonk. No! My iced cream!
Something happened when there was one. I was no longer myself. There was screaming for a moment, but only for a moment.
In an instant, Elizabeth was grabbed.
Yeah, it's kind of like how you describe the scooper. It only hurts for a moment. The scooped becomes the scoopy. Or the scoopy then gets scooped. This would happen before scooping. Fake philosophical with Ash GT Live.
Grabbed by Circus Baby and thrown into her stomach hatch. The sheer force of her being grabbed and thrown into the robot's storage tank was enough to kill her almost instantly. This is something that William wasn't able to test. That was until his daughter became the test.
It just feels strange when Elizabeth is talking about other children being able to get closer to Circus Baby. Maybe it's because Afton knew that they were going up in a group and that Elizabeth would not, like, she'd be going up mostly solo so that he would have to supervise if that ever happened. And so if she went behind the back, then Circus Baby would be like, oh, there's only one. Yeah! And not, he'd feel more comfortable there was a group. So if more children wanted to go up there and they were all together, it'd be fine. And I guess, like, you couldn't make dummy children, Afton. You could make a whole bunker, but you can't fill up a sack and draw a face on it and be like, oh, it's a kid.
William Afton now lost another one of his kids, but this time it was all his fault. After just one day of being open, Circus Baby's Pizza World was shut down. Afton covered up the incident by telling the public that the restaurant shut down due to gas leaks.
Right, yes. So, yep, that completely checks out. I like the way that John said that, oh, this is now my fault. There's no place to put the blame, and that part of reflection. I am also, I was going to let this go, but I'm like, oh, wow, this puts Elizabeth's death before the MCI, which is interesting. And many people would place Elizabeth's death after the MCI. People just don't know where to put Circus Baby and or sister location in the timeline whatsoever. It's always been a point of ambiguity, right? Cut back to Deskman and the potential meta reference to Scott. It's, no one knows where that goes, right? But let's say that it is here. It does happen before the missing children's incident. It does give Afton more impetus to be, I don't want to say reckless, but less, not less, I think more calloused about killing children, right? He's now gone through it twice. He is broken, he is traumatized, he is kind of descending into evil and madness. There's that. It's like the, oh, well, I'm gonna do this sort of like super technical way of going about it and have this claw come out and pull the children into the stomachs inside of the animatronics. And then if that backfires and he's like, well, I'll just have to do it myself. Therefore, he goes DIY with the MCI and just does it the old-fashioned way, right? Interesting. I'm curious to see how he ties the link between Elizabeth dying and then the motive to go in to the missing children's incident, because now there's a problem with that, is the reputations of these restaurants and the deaths should now be lingering over Freddy Fazbear's Pizza pretty heavily.
Everyone bought that story. The local newspaper wrote about the incident, saying, in other news, the grand opening of Circus Baby's Pizza World has apparently been canceled due to reported gas leaks in the building. Sources close to the establishment questioned the report, saying that strange activity around the area at night suggests something else is to blame. One local is quoted as saying, everything just stopped. There was so much excitement built around this place opening, and then they just stopped talking about it. A tenant from across the street claims to have witnessed a large group of cars surrounding the building during the night, and large pieces of equipment being taken out of the building under tarps. A few weeks later, the building was for sale. There is no comment yet from the local entrepreneur who financed the venture.
local entrepreneur, William Afton.
That local entrepreneur, William Afton,
Oh, yeah, I just said that too. Aw, they're so cool.
covered up everything. He was able to bring Circus Baby and the Funtime animatronics back down into his bunker. But once he got them there, he noticed something was different about Circus Baby. One distinct feature about Circus Baby was her blue eyes. But what once was blue eyes now were green, the same color as Elizabeth's.
Yeah, my eyes are blue, but they kind of turn green in the sun. No, sorry. Oh, something about dead daughters of Fazbear co-founders presumably dying and changing something about the animatronic vessel that they now possess. That classic move.
In that moment, he knew that his daughter's soul attached itself to the robot. Her soul lived on in Circus Baby. Afton knew that the way Charlie went on to possess the puppet was sloppy, and it was hard to recreate without getting caught.
Yeah.
What if the kids' bodies were hidden where no one would ever look? What if, just like his daughter, their bodies were stuffed into the animatronics? For Afton, Elizabeth...
That makes sense to me. That makes sense to me. That makes sense to me. Yes, DIY MCI. It's weird to think about, but I do think there is something to be said here about Baby and Elizabeth's death coming first. Because it's also another motive to be running these experiments and to try to create remnant and how to harvest life and these negative emotions to create life and thinking. Thinking is the word that we keep hearing too.
Elizabeth's death quickly went from just another inconvenience to a scientific breakthrough. Afton was one step closer to harnessing the power of life itself. But one successful experiment wasn't enough. Just like the fear experiments he built in the bunker, he needed to replicate exactly what happened. He needed to recreate the accident, and he knew exactly how he was going to do it. Using the Funtime animatronics again wasn't an option. Circus Baby's Pizza World was shut down, and the public was already getting too suspicious of the animatronics.
Right? It's like, oh my gosh, how much lenience do you have here, dude? It makes it more ironic to be shoving the kids inside of the animatronics, therefore, because it's like, oh, they're suspicious of the animatronics. Well, now they have the most reason to be because they smell weird, and they're like, oh, I don't know what's up with these guys.
But he didn't need the Funtime animatronics. He was going to run the experiment himself. On June 26, 1985, William Afton made his way to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. There, he would put on the old Spring Bonnie suit from Fredbear's to lure 5 kids into the back room.
Took a swim with my new friend.
John!
Didn't care, I jumped right.
Oh my gosh, he's singing. Ooh, 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 ooh.
Hello. Looking for a friend?
The water's clear, come swim with me.
Oh my gosh. Ugh. Ugh. You're bizarre for that. John. The order of the deaths with the freaking plushies, dude? Really? My plushie's broken. Let me get you a new one. Dude. I'm like, what do I even say right now? I will say. Oh, that's so creepy. My dude. Afton, my dude. You couldn't, like, scrub this thing before trying to lure kids in the back? Clearly you didn't need to, but, like, dude, there's some plaque right here that we gotta take care of, man. Get some Colgate. Absolutely not. I also like how he's just, like, hiding the knife. Your dog's in the back. I got him. Don't even worry about it. Don't worry about what's behind my back either. Nothing's back there. Maybe your dog. Only find out if you follow me.
One by one, Afton
Foxy,
killed
go, go,
them
go!
and stuffed their bodies into the animatronics. Susie was first, being stuffed into Chica.
Yes.
Gabriel went into Freddy,
Yep.
Jeremy into Bonnie, Fritz into Foxy, and then there was Cassidy, who went into Fredbear, aka Golden Freddy. At this point, Afton had no idea that the crying child spirit was in Golden Freddy, so he didn't think twice about shoving Cassidy in there. The way Afton killed Cassidy, though, was different from the rest. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy were just regular animatronics. Afton had no choice but to kill them, then stuff them into the suits. But Golden Freddy wasn't just a regular animatronic, it was a Springlock suit. The same Springlock suit that took his youngest son's life. Afton was aware of how dangerous the Springlocks were. Any bit of moisture or too much movement would cause them to snap shut, slowly killing whoever was inside. So that's exactly what he did to Cassidy. He put him into the suit and watched as the Springlocks snapped shut, cementing Cassidy's death as the most brutal of them all.
Yeah. Yeah. I have seen timelines and theories of like, oh, Cassidy's death was just violent. Like, he went way too far. I actually like the note of, well, Cassidy died a Springlock death, right? And maybe because teeny tiny Cassidy just kind of shoved in there haphazardly, wasn't fully wearing the suit, and so couldn't really merge with it in the same way that Afton would eventually merge with Spring Bonnie. But yeah, then we get to see this whole animation and additional context for that, which I like.
Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and Golden Freddy weren't the only animatronics sitting in the back room of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, though. They were joined by the security puppet, which contained the soul of Henry's daughter, Charlie. Once Afton was gone, Charlie jumped into action, almost acting as a guide for their souls, properly giving them life inside of each animatronic. After the incident, the kids were quickly reported missing by their families, and although the security cameras caught Afton luring the kids away, he wasn't able to fully get in trouble. Since he was wearing the Spring Bonnie suit, they were never able to prove it was actually him. Afton also hid the kids' bodies where no one would ever look, so the bodies were never found. Unbelievably, Afton was able to get away with yet another crime.
So I always assumed that Afton was able to get away with it because of the same mechanic that we saw in the Shadow Freddy minigame, where there's like one room in each establishment where there are no cameras, where the animatronics cannot go, right? So I thought that, like, if that would be a good spot for killing, but it would still be a matter of like, well, yeah, but who else is in the suit? Afton. So like process of elimination would tell us that, like, hey, Afton does have something to do with the deaths, right? So let me listen to this again.
In trouble. Since he was wearing the Spring Bonnie suit, they were never able to prove it was actually him. Afton also hid the kids' bodies where no one would ever look, so the bodies were never found. Unbelievably, Afton was able to get away with yet another crime.
Caught on the cameras as Spring Bonnie. There's a place where the animatronics cannot go. It's so hard to state reasons of how Afton got away with it. It's so hard.
Because of all the bad press that came from the missing children's incident, people stopped coming to the pizzeria. After months of customers no longer showing up, Fazbear Entertainment officially shut down Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Shortly after the pizzeria shut down, Afton decided to pull the Funtime animatronics out of retirement and finally get his underground facility fully operational. He knew he couldn't try opening another Circus Baby's restaurant, so he had a new idea.
Due to the massive success and even more so the unfortunate closing of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, it was clear that the stage was set, no pun intended, for another contender in children's entertainment. Unlike most entertainment venues, our robotic entertainers are rented out for private parties during the day.
Yeah, so this is what I was talking about earlier with like the rental service, where you can rent a Funtime and then they'll do the counting thing and make sure that you're alone, yoink, and go from there, right?
Afton opened Circus Baby's
Hey, we're halfway through! Whoop whoop! Whoop, whoop. See? I knew I could do it.
Entertainment and rental. This way, he could rent out the Funtime animatronics to local birthday parties, capture kids, and bring them back to his underground bunker to be experimented on.
Okay, so this is interesting. Having Elizabeth's death happen before the MCI, but not the rentals. Because then there's this sort of like back and forth happening of, oh, well, I saw this kill a kid. I could just make it go out and do that more. Unless he wanted to take time to kind of optimize it and fix the Funtime animatronics. Okay, well, screw that. None of that worked. I'm just going to do it myself. Versus like, I'm going to use Circus Baby to capture kids. Oh no, she killed my daughter. I'll just do this the other way. Actually, no, I won't. I'll go back to the animatronics again. Like, oh, well, okay. We're changing our mind a lot, William.
While Afton was running his rental business, Fazbear Entertainment was determined to try opening another pizzeria. In the summer of 1987, Fazbear Entertainment opened the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, this time with brand new versions of their original characters. These were called the toy animatronics, and they were once again built by Henry. Henry was aware of what happened in 1985, and especially of what happened to his daughter, so he was determined to make sure that never happened again. These new toy animatronics were equipped with facial recognition systems that were linked directly to a criminal database. The security puppet was also brought out of retirement, but instead of working security, it sat quietly in the prize corner. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, Golden Freddy, and Spring Bonnie were also moved to the new pizzeria, and it's revealed that these animatronics were mostly used for spare parts.
Yeah, so sorry. I also just heard in the background, there's certain songs that I just always associate with John's videos, and a little deep sting is one of those sounds, one of those noises. So here, right, we're asserting that it was Henry's initiative to be like, oh, okay, we're gonna make sure that they can recognize criminals. No, none of this crime will ever happen again, right? It's interesting because I think when we look at Henry, a lot of people view him very positively. Other people view him as complicit in a lot of what happened, right? Like suspecting Afton at some point, but not acting on it aggressively enough to really shut it down or really having the evidence to back it. So there's a few interpretations of Henry that are typically taken. I think this one is more of like the positive Henry route from what I'm getting. Yeah, we'll see. But I assume that what we're going from here, because the old animatronics were brought to parts and services, and those parts were then used and put into the toy animatronics. No, there's not kids in the toy animatronics, but there's like a little bit of soul juice somewhere in there that gives them the oomph, you know? That's the very scientific way to put it. Anyway.
By now, I'm sure you've noticed the older models sitting in the back room. Those are from the previous location, and we just use them for parts now.
Yeah.
The idea at first was to repair them, but they were just so ugly, you know? And the smell.
This means that the haunted metal of the original Freddy's animatronics was now being put into the toy animatronics, and the toys to also now be possessed. After Afton got away with the first set of murders, he needed to see if the kids' spirits were possessing the animatronics. In order to see for himself, Afton went back to work at the new pizzeria as a daytime security guard. While
this dude is so gutsy. Sorry.
Afton was working the day shift, Jeremy Fitzgerald was working the night shift. Jeremy worked there for 5 nights, and unfortunately for him, because the kids possessing the animatronics were killed by an adult, they were extremely aggressive to any adult they encountered.
They interact with the kids just fine, but when they encounter an adult, they just stare.
Yeah, so again, there's no kid bodies in the toy animatronics, but because parts from the Wizards were put into them, there is like a little bit of spirit in there, like kid spirit. It smells like kid spirit. Ugh.
Meanwhile, Afton decided to pull the same trick he did at the old Freddy's location, gaining 5 more victims.
Gutsy!
Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back, a yellow one. Someone used it.
Afton used the Spring Bonnie suit to pull the same stunt again on 5 more kids.
DCI.
But as he was committing the murders, Charlie from inside the puppet was actively trying to save the kids.
Yep,
she tried enlisting the
save them. More of these FNAF 2 style minigames. FNAF 2 and FNAF 3 is where you see a lot of this unfold.
help of the other animatronics, but it was too late. Afton had already finished what he started. Not only that, him seeing the puppet and Freddy walking around the pizzeria trying to stop him was all the proof he needed that his experiments were successful. The kids he put into the original suits were haunting the animatronics. But
it's so sad. Like there's a spot here. Oh my gosh, they were going at him. They wanted to stop Afton. They were mad at Afton, but Afton's finding joy in that because it means that his experimentation worked, right? It's this complete dissonance of emotion, and like expanding on that for narrative, like that's wild, dude.
Knew that the haunted metal of the endoskeletons was the key to everything, but the animatronics were trapped at the pizzeria. There was no way he could bring them back to his underground bunker. He couldn't get to the animatronics if the pizzeria was still open and active.
No,
so he needed
not.
to find a way to make sure the pizzeria shuts down and fast. Instead of
Again, like, oh my gosh, how much money does Fazbear have to burn? Where they were like, you know what? Why don't we just try and close this place down? You know? Like, I'm going to do my little dead kid thing. We're going to go wild, and I'm just going to shut this down. And screw anyone who is working here and needs to make money. I've got kids to kill. So,
Instead of stuffing the new set of victims into the toy animatronics, he decided to leave the kids out in plain sight, scattered throughout the pizzeria. This was a guaranteed way to get the pizzeria shut down. A few hours after Afton committed the murders, Jeremy Fitzgerald showed up for his night shift, unaware of what happened that day.
I will say though, that's a good thing to call out of like, I am leaving these kids in plain sight because I have the motive to get this place shut down because there is no ulterior desire with it. Though, again, it's just, William Afton is one of those characters where you want him to have more motivation so bad. So bad. Because some of his actions are like, okay, you're trying to fuel these experiments, but this is just a buck wild way to go about it, dude. It feels sloppy. Afton feels sloppy.
What on earth are you doing there? Didn't you get the memo? The place is closed down, at least for a while. Listen, just finish your shift. It's safer than trying to leave in the middle of the night. We have one more event scheduled for tomorrow, a birthday. You'll be on day shift. Wear your uniform. Stay close to the animatronics and make sure they don't hurt anyone, okay?
Oh, easier said than done. Whoa, look at these guys.
Next day, during Jeremy's day shift, one of the animatronics bit him in the head. This was infamously known as the Bite of 87. Meanwhile, Afton successfully got the pizzeria shut down.
How does this keep happening? So again, Bite of 87 from the week before strongly implied that this was a foxy endeavor.
This was infamously known as the Bite of 87. Meanwhile, Afton successfully got the pizzeria shut down. The local newspaper wrote about the incident, saying after being open only a few short weeks, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is closing its doors. The new animatronics will be scrapped due to possible malfunctions. However, the original characters are being kept in hopes of a possible reorganization of the company.
But they're so busted. Okay.
Since the toy animatronics were now being scrapped, he knew he could get away with taking their endoskeletons. But he also knew that he couldn't risk showing his face at the pizzeria again. So he got his oldest son, Michael, to do the work for him. William was easily able to get Michael to do whatever he wanted. William was abusive and manipulative, while Michael was haunted by the guilt of what he did to his younger brother. Because of this, Michael basically acted as William's puppet. Michael showed up for the night shift at
interesting choice of words there, John. Let me see that image
Because of this, Michael...
Fun! So I can see Michael feeling kind of powerless when it comes to his dad, and maybe wanting some answers and hoping that this might help. It's tragic.
Basically acted as William's puppet. Michael showed up for the night shift at the now closed Freddy Fazbear's Pizza under a code name, Fritz Smith. At the end of his shift, he would successfully steal the toy animatronics endoskeletons for his father, causing him to get fired his first day on the job due to tampering with the animatronics. As it said in the local newspaper, while Fazbear Entertainment...
I think Dual Process covered this. Dual Process Theory covered this as well. But like, because the Fun Times had pieces of the Wizards in them, right? And that was presumably what was close to the rotting bodies of dead children. Like, that's probably what would have smelled bad. So I don't know how pungent that was, that it literally was hooked onto, like, the metal to make them also smell bad, or if it was just like, no, I'm firing you because you smell, and I'm gonna start a Twitter thread about you, and there's gonna be a bunch of comments about how you look like you smell bad, and it's gonna be really bad for you, and I'm not sorry.
Tampering with the animatronics. As it said in the local newspaper, while Fazbear Entertainment scrapped the toy animatronics, the original Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy were going to be fixed up and reused. And that's exactly what they did. After the
back and forth of this franchise, like, they're so flip-floppy with their decisions. And so maybe because Afton can be a little bit sloppy, because Fazbear is sloppier.
7 Freddy's location shut down, they opened yet another location.
My
this
God.
time using the exact same building as the first Freddy Fazbear's Pizza.
I don't know what it is, but like seeing all the animations of like they opened another one. I know they opened another one, but it's like, girl.
As you can imagine, this didn't work out great for the business.
Yeah.
People already had a bad impression of Fazbear Entertainment, so using the same building that the original murders took place in didn't help business. Customers barely showed up to the new pizzeria, leading it to shut down by the end of 1993.
So much money failure. Money failure, money failure, money failure. This is expensive to do.
Although this was bad news for Fazbear Entertainment, this was great news for William Afton. Afton was able to acquire the endos of the toy animatronics, but that wasn't enough. He needed all of the haunted endoskeletons, especially the ones in the original animatronics. Once the pizzeria shut down, Afton came up with a plan to steal the endos from the animatronics. Each pizzeria was designed with something called a safe room.
Yes, yes. These are the rooms that I was referring to before, where there are no cameras in it. You can't go in there. This is what we see in the Shadow Freddy minigame. Yes.
If there's ever an emergency, please go to the designated safe room. Every location is built with one extra room that is not included in the digital map layouts programmed into the animatronics or security system. This room is hidden to customers, invisible to animatronics, and is always off camera.
This room was hidden from guests and invisible to the animatronics. Afton would use this to his advantage, luring each of the animatronics to the safe room and
I'll also say I made the assumption that like this had been previous locations because Phone Guy deliberately said like, oh, every location has this. Okay. Every location that you shut down? Probably.
Dismantling them one by one. The kids possessing these animatronics were the same kids he lured into the back room all those years ago. He planned to use the same trick to lure the same kids
I like the cabinet
all
a lot.
over again.
Whoa! Oh, how neat is that? Oh my gosh, the board? The board with the map of the camera? That is awesome. Oh, no way. Oh. Ugh. Ooh. The looker. Oh my god. Oh my god. You ever remember that there's kids inside the animatronics? And then they act like kids a little bit because they're curious and like a little naive. And you get sad. What just happened to me? Ding. Oh, Foxy. The border, Foxy. Ugh. So creepy. Oh no! No! They're all dismantled. Oh! It's Buddy.
Once he finished dismantling each animatronic and stealing their endoskeleton, he brought them down to his underground bunker, where he would melt them all down into one liquid substance called Remnant.
Remnant? There you go.
Not only did Afton rob these kids of their lives, he would use their souls long after they're gone for his own personal gain.
It's interesting here also that we keep coming back to the whole, like, kids drawing, like, shortly before or while Afton's coming up, right? Because that was such a big motif in the FNAF movie, right? Where we saw Abby drawing, and she was like, here, it's my friends, and it was actually the kids that were presenting the suits. So it's cool to see that happen here, and like planting the seed of that same occurrence happening through those drawings, right? It's a nice nod. It's a really nice nod. Oh, the Freddy. I hate you. I hate you. Oh! No! Oh my gosh. You didn't have to do it like that. Just saying. Just saying. I don't think that was fully necessary to do. I wanted to cry. I wanted to cry, John. I'm fine. I'm regular, and there's nothing wrong with me. Now that I have to sit with that, you do too. This thing is so good. Again, the cinematography and the choices and using that to propel narrative is extremely, extremely effective, right? It's also very welcome when a lot of this is just very heavy, like, lore, evidence point, evidence point, evidence point, evidence point, you know? So we've covered a lot of ground here, you know? Elizabeth died prior to the MCI. The MCI happened. The rental service happened after the MCI. Lots of places closed down. We still don't know what the money is. I realized from the first part I never actually talked about the mound, and I kind of just skipped over it. Oh well. So we went through all of that to the discovery of Remnant. Whoa. And all the way through the Bite of 87, the reopening of Freddy Fazbear's, what we see in FNAF 2. Wow. We've covered a lot of ground. We have gone through 1995. So we're about to probably get to the next chapter after this, where we start seeing the 21st century era of FNAF. We'll get to FNAF 3. We will see, probably at that point, more of Ultimate Custom Night and Sister Location proper. More Michael guilt, Michael dread, Michael suffering. Yes, so we will be back. I think we are good to finish this in 3 parts. I think I could finish this in the next part. I made some serious progress in this round. So yeah, all in all, John, killing it, crushing it. I'm having fun. I was not wired like this a few months ago, but it's a great time. I have been really getting into the weeds of FNAF lore, and I'm still learning. So, as always, please, please, please leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any questions, or comments, or jokes, or statements, or conjectures, opinions, facts, greetings, and salutations. And that's it on that. Thank y'all so much for watching. And remember, this wasn't a live stream, but it was a video. A video for you. See ya!